Welcome back. On Saturday, January 20, U.S. President Donald Trump marked his first year in office amidst a government shutdown. In this next report, we'll take a look at some of the controversies and successes of the Trump administration in the last 1 year.
From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
In his inaugural address, President Donald Trump pledged to end what he called the American carnage of rusted factories and crime. It was a populist and nationalist rallying cry that appealed to Trump's base of political support.
About us, on our victory.
The businessman turned world leader stressed his deal-making abilities during the election primaries, but struggled to pass legislation concerning two of his biggest campaign promises, immigration reform and the repeal of Obamacare. Not long after taking office, President Trump took hard line on immigration as he signed an executive order that called for the deportation of 11 million undocumented immigrants already in the country. As president, he has signed 3 orders banning entry of most people from several Muslim-majority countries, as well as rescinding an Obama-era program that has prevented the deportation of some 700,000 undocumented immigrants. But the orders have been challenged in the courts.
And this is the protection of the nation from foreign terrorist entry into the United States. We all know what that means. Protection of the nation from foreign terrorist entry into the United States.
Republicans failed in their efforts to repeal the Obamacare healthcare law, and Trump's presidency has been hit by White House infighting and a federal investigation into a possible collusion last year between his election campaign team and Russian officials. But in late December 2017, Trump signed Republicans' massive $1.5 trillion tax overhaul into law, cementing the biggest legislative victory of his first year in office.
It's the largest, I always say the most massive, but it's the largest tax cut in the history of our country, and reform, but tax cut. Really something special.
On the international scene, in April, the U.S. military launched 59 Tomahawk missiles from 2 U.S. Navy destroyers at a Syrian airfield, and targets included aircraft and air defense systems in response to a chemical weapons attack President Trump called a disgrace to humanity. Many who had been angered by Trump's efforts to ban Syrians, along with visitors from several other Muslim-majority nations, welcomed what they saw as his new role as the avenger of civilians killed in the chemical weapons attack.
Donald Trump rants and raves at the press. I'm not ranting.
Still in the Middle East, President Donald Trump caused outrage in the Arab world after he recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and announced that the U.S. would move its embassy to Jerusalem. The UN General Assembly later adopted a motion rejecting the U.S. decision by a decisive vote of 128 to 9 with 35 abstentions. The vote came after President Trump had threatened reprisals against countries backing the measure, which reaffirms that the status of Jerusalem must be resolved through negotiations. Also, Pyongyang's July launch of intercontinental ballistic missiles escalated tensions between U.S. and North Korea. Mr. Trump told the recluse nation it will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen if it threatened the United States again.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
But the one constant that surrounded the Trump presidency was and remains the investigation into possible Russian meddling in the 2016 election. President Trump ignited a political firestorm in May by firing FBI Director James Comey. James Comey, who had been leading an investigation into the Trump 2016 presidential campaign's possible collusion with Russia to influence the election outcome. Former FBI Director Robert Mueller was subsequently appointed as special counsel in the investigation. And in the years since taking office, President Trump has repeatedly attacked the news media, berating certain outlets as fake news. A year after the inauguration and only days away from his first State of the Union address on January the 30th this year, President Trump has not backed away from the occasionally hyperbolic language and stinging personal attacks that captivated the public throughout the election. He has ignored calls to stop tweeting, embracing his direct path at communicating with the American people.